Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is L.A. Williams, and I am here live on the Millionaire Car Salesman podcast, and I'm extremely excited for my guest today. Hey, man, this gentleman, he's actually kind of in my home away from hometown, right? I actually graduated from Full Sail University. You guys all know I have my degree in audio engineering from there. So I spent a lot of time in Orlando. I'm there every year for our AALC council. I'll be back in April. But man, so, I've been in Winter Park, Florida, lived there for some time. But this gentleman, man, he is the internet director over the headquarter team down there, rocking with the Mazda team and the Honda team. And so, man, we want to hear his story. We want to hear, what it took, how he got in the industry. We want to hear in the Millionaire Car Salesman podcast. We want to hear about the money, right? So, goodness gracious, what does it take? And I love, really working with internet directors, because so many times we work with, general managers and salespeople, but it's rare that we get to work with the real internet folks. So, man, without further ado, I want to introduce my main man, Mr. Richard Lindsay. What's up, Rich?
Welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman podcast, the #1 resource for automotive sales professionals, managers, and owners to learn how to make money, accumulate wealth, and to all out ball out in the auto industry. And now your hosts, Sean V. Bradley and L.A. Williams.
Boom. What's going on, LA? Happy to be here, my man.
Oh, man, totally appreciate you, man. So, I told people a little bit about where you're from, right? I know they all jealous of the weather right now. How many degrees is it outside?
Man, it's cold outside. I think it's like 65 or something right now. I got to wear a jacket.
See, you can't say cold. But it's like 35 where I am in Philadelphia, man. It's all good.
Hey, listen, Florida's got highways. Everybody can get here.
There you go, right? Man, I'm headed there myself. I'm bringing my son. He's 10. We're going to go be at Universal Studios when we do the AALC in April. So we're excited about that. But tell the people about you. I mean, because your story is awesome. I already know that. And I know it's still unfolding, but tell us where your story began. How'd you even get in the automotive industry?
So, my story is, sure, similar to a bunch. I actually was working in retail. And the retail, retail, I worked at a Marshall's and like a sporting goods store for a really long time.
Okay.
And I just got a promotion and I went out and bought myself a new car. And when I bought the car, I was like, man, I said, these guys just look like they're making it hand over fist. So, my parents always said that I had a really good gift of gab. So I decided, shortly after I bought my car that it was going to be, that I wanted to make a jump into the automotive industry. And that was back in 2006. And I really haven't looked back sinch.
So you got sold twice.
Yeah, definitely.
Bought the car, and then you was like, man, were they dressed sharp? I mean, what made you think that they were making money? Because, you got some people in our industry that are really making money, and then you got some that's like scraping by. So what was it that said, to you, young Richard, man, yeah, we making money over here? What screamed that to you?
I just think it was the energy of the dealerships that I went to, man. Every one of them was, or for the most part, they were all busy. There was a lot of people running around. There looked like a lot of hustling and bustling.
Nice.
The guy that sold me the car is oddly enough still somebody I talked to today. He was well presented. He had on a nice watch. And just from talking to him, he said he made a pretty good living at it. And I was making, I don't know, 30, 35 grand maybe a year in retail.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured, I said if he can do it, I'm sure I can. So dove in, 2 feet forward, and like I said, the rest is history.
That's nice. All right, so we want to kind of, dive deep into that history. So you came aboard. I guess you started working at that particular dealership where he was working, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so funny enough, I actually got a job at a different dealership that had just opened. It was a Toyota store, had just bought a Hyundai point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a part of the opening team. Like, we had to pick up the cars from the other dealership that they were at and drive them all to the new building, and then get the desk set up and the computer set up and the whole 9 yards. And then they hired this new manager that was going to, steer the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the manager they hired was the guy that sold me my car.
Ah, interesting.
At a different dealer. So I thought that was really funny. So that sort of came full circle.
Right.
But I worked at a small town Hyundai store for 7 or 8 months. Like I mentioned, they just opened. The dealership did, I don't know, we did 35 units, our best month. I know, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in 2006, when we did 35 units, our GM threw us a party because the Hyundai store that was down the street, when they had the Hyundai point, they were only selling 10 or 12 cars.
Oh, wow.
So we did 35. He threw us a party. So I thought that was pretty cool. But there was a lot of things, back then we were making cold calls out of the phone book and, just doing some different things. And I decided,
hustling.
Yeah, hustling. That's what it is. That's the name of the game. And my parents bought all their new cars from a Honda store down the street. And they said they just bought a new Honda. And they said, hey, listen, why don't you go talk to so-and-so, over at the Honda store. Maybe you might want to sell Hondas instead of Hyundais. So I went over there. I interviewed. And they gave me the job. I worked there for 5 years. I started as a salesperson and then became their internet manager. I grew their internet department from doing a couple of cars to about 20, 25 every month when the store was selling, I don't know, 60 to 70 cars every month. I was doing it as a one-man show. Nice. And then I just got sick of the cold, man. Got sick of the cold and moved to Florida.
Okay. So where was this initially? I'm thinking this whole thing is happening in Florida. Where were you from?
No, so I was born and raised in Rhode Island.
Okay.
The smallest state with the biggest name. But I lived there for 25 years. I loved it. But I just got sick of scraping ice and shoveling snow.
Yeah. And
moving the cars around the parking lot 14 times to let the plow truck drivers come in and then scrape the snow off. 200 cars in a parking lot. It wasn't for me. So I had the opportunity to move down to Florida in, May 2011. I hooked up with the Asbury Automotive Group, a big group down here. Mm-hmm. They liked what I brought to the table. They paid for me to move. I came down here to Florida. I worked for them for 5 years. And then I bounced around for a short minute, and then I came to the headquarter group where I've been for the last 2 years.
Nice.
And it's quite the journey.
Yeah, you got to dive in. You got to tell us a little bit more about that, because here's the thing. Most people are afraid, right? We already know this, but people have fear, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so kid from Rhode Island, and, you're like, okay, well, somebody says, oh, you can come to Florida. Like, what makes you not think, oh, well, this seems kind of weird? I mean, what gave you the confidence that, I could do this?
So, I had met some people down here. It's a crazy story. I met some people down here. I came down in March of 2011 with a friend of mine to be a date. Her best friend was getting married. And I came down here with her.
Now we're getting the good stories.
Now we're getting the good stuff. So her best friend was getting married. And she was getting married. So I came down here. I lived with them for 2 weeks while they were going through the whole process, the wedding and the whole 9 yards. And we really hit it off. And they said, you know what? They said, there's a car dealer right down the street. If you ever thought about moving down to Florida, you can live with us while you get your feet wet. And I thought about it for about 13 seconds. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So I went back home and I started researching the local Honda dealers in the area because I'd been with Honda for 5 years. Poked around to a couple of the dealers, got online, read their reviews, mystery shopped all of them to see sort of what their processes were, how far they were from where I was going to live. And then I reached out to 2 and then made my decision from there. And then when I jumped in with Asbury, they liked what I had to say. They liked my credentials. So they gave me a little signing bonus to move down and make it happen down here. So I moved down in May 2011. I drove down with a buddy of mine, and I said, you know what? I said, if it doesn't work, I said, I can always go home. And I said, I'm going to give it a year, though. After a year, if I don't like it, then I can always pack my stuff back up in my car and drive back.
Right. Okay.
So moved on here May 2011, a single guy living with a married couple. I started getting into the dating scene a little bit. I met my wife, my girlfriend at the time, in August of that year. I had gone home for Christmas in December, and my old dealer, actually a competitor of my old dealer in Rhode Island, offered to double my salary for me to go back and work for them. And I thought about it, but I said, you know what? I said, I made myself a promise that I was going to give, that I was going to, that was definitely a part of it. But I said, I gave myself a year. I said, I want to do it for a year. I've only been down here for 6 months. It's very easy to turn around and run home to, mommy or daddy or, whatever it is.
Right.
So I turned it down, which was double what I would have been making at the time. And I also, just started dating my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and I wanted to see where that went. And like I said, I haven't looked back. It was the best decision I made, by far. When it's Christmas Day and people are shoveling snow and scraping ice, I'm at the beach drinking a Corona. So, life is, life is good.
Yeah, I got you. So here's the thing. So there's a couple of key questions that I want to ask. And I know I'm kind of like diving a little bit deep into some of this stuff. But again, your thinking is different than the average Joe. And so that's what I'm all about. I know the podcast is all about making money, but I think that, money's a mindset. So a person like you went from, like you said, $3,000 a month, you know what I'm saying, in retail. You go from doing that, you start selling cars, you're starting to make a certain amount of money. And I want to talk about that. But what made you do the extra research? Because regular people don't mystery shop the place where they're going to work. They just don't do that kind of stuff. I mean, my wife's HR, so I watch the kind of stuff that people do. What made you think to do something like that?
So, I wanted to be able to bring something to the table outside of, just the skill set of selling cars. I feel like anybody can sell a car, with the right training and that sort of thing. So I wanted to bring actual value, to the dealership that I was going to. And one of the ways I thought that I'd bring value was, I've been doing the internet thing for 5 years, or, really at that time it was probably 3.5, 4 years. So I, at least I thought I knew a thing or two. So when I mystery shopped the dealers and I wanted to see what their process was, I figured that was going to be a conversation that I could have with, the internet director, the hiring manager, the GM, the GSM, about things that I saw and areas that I thought that they can improve in. Listen, anybody can go online and fill out an application or fill out a resume. And I interview people all day long, but very few people go above and beyond.
Right.
And I really wanted to move here. I really did. So I figured that was going to be one thing that sort of set me apart from everybody else. And that's why they ultimately, I feel, offered me the position. And then above and beyond that, really paid for my move. Right. And, it all worked out for the greater good.
That's special. All right, good. So talk to us. All right. So when you were selling cars, how many cars did you sell? Like when you first got involved?
God, like I said, we had a party when we sold 35 cars, and there was 5 of us. I was probably, when I first started cars, greener than green can be, I was probably selling 7 to 8 cars a month.
Right. So now just talk about this, because think about it. You're only selling 7 to 8 cars a month, but that's obviously a difference from, working retail. What was the financial benefit? What kept you doing it?
I enjoyed the interaction with people. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. There was a couple people there that had been in the industry, for a long time. And I don't know, you sort of get that vibe when somebody's successful, and from being around the sales manager, who was the guy that sold me the car, to the internet guy who had been doing it for a little while, to being around the GM, the GSM, I just had this feeling that, these guys aren't making, $50,000 a year, I just had this feeling that they were doing really good for themselves. So selling 6-7 cars. I mean, I wasn't lighting the world on fire, but at that point, I'm a 20-year-old kid. I was still living at home. I hadn't moved out yet. The money was okay, but that's sort of why I made the change to the Honda dealer, because I wanted to sell more. And I did want to make more money because my ultimate goal was, the proverbial move out of mommy and daddy's basement, which I did end up doing. And I'm honestly, I'm glad I did it.
Nice. That's beautiful, man. So I love this because basically what I hear you saying is that culture is important, right? So many times, you go to a car dealer and it's like blah, 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 right? But we got to go somewhere, man. Culture is everything. You can attract the right people if you got the right culture. So I'm loving it. So at one point in time, did the money start to be like, oh yeah, this is the thing, right? What was it? Was it a number of cars? Was it the internet promotion? What was it?
Yeah, so once I got the internet promotion, which I was only at the Honda store maybe 6 or 7 months before they gave me the promotion. And then that job came with a salary. I got a demo allowance. They gave me a free cell phone. It came with I got free gas in my car.
All kinds of stuff.
It came with a couple of nice perks. It wasn't like, I wasn't like I'm LeBron. I just arrived on the scene, but it was pretty close to it. I think my first full year of being in the internet, I think I made $55,000 maybe, which to somebody who was making $30,000 a year, 28, $30,000 a year, to be able to double my money and know that there's still people that have been at that store for a long time that were making, double what I was making, I could really see the potential.
Yeah, absolutely. We just did I don't know if you were on it, but the webinar with Ali Rada. He talked about how everybody told him coming in the industry, man, you can make $100,000 a year. And he was excited about that. And now he understands, from a personal point of view that you can make $100,000 a month. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yo, this is the daggone best industry.
That guy's an absolute beast, man. An absolute beast.
Yeah, 100%, man. Beautiful stuff. So were you on last night or no?
So I watched a portion of it. I have a small child and she's teething. I was helping my wife out, but I did pop in and out a couple of times, but I didn't watch the whole thing. No.
Okay. Give me one value nugget that you got out of it.
I guess maybe just to never give up. Just because like you mentioned, just because somebody says one thing, somebody's reality. One person's reality may not be your reality. There's people in this business that make $30,000 a year, and there's people like Ali Rada and Frank Correnti and some of the guys that really crush it that make $100,000+ a month.
Right.
It's create your own destiny. Pave the way to your own future.
Yes, indeed. That's one of the best parts about the industry. We love it. So, all right. So now you're, full-fledged internet director. You're rocking over 2 stores. Talk about how many units is your department doing now? So
at Honda, my department averages about 100 cars a month. We have, the months where we do 90. We have the months where we do 115. But on average, we average about 100. The store on average is a 200 car store. Same thing. We have our 180 car months. We have our 220 car months, but we average about 200 cars. And then at Mazda, man, our Mazda dealer is doing really good things. They were selling earlier in the year. They were selling, 40 cars a month. And now we've made some personnel changes. I got involved over there. They promoted me to build a BDC at that dealership. We got some people in some good places, and now that store went from selling 30 to 40 cars a month to now selling, 100 units a month, and my BDC does about half of that.
Nice. So you're responsible for 150, cars a month, which, by my calculations, even if I just said $2,000 a month, that's $300,000 a month that you're bringing to the table. Right. So, you know what I'm saying? So I'm sure you're far from making 28.
Yeah, you're about spot on.
Awesome, man. Awesome stuff. So this is super exciting. So so now that you've been in the industry for a while and everything like that, could you share with the people, what are the keys to success and making money in the industry? How did you, I mean, you got promoted because, again, you thought out, I want to say outside of the box, but you really just, thought about bringing value to your new place of employment, right? So that was the start of it, but how did you kind of move up, and what's the keys to making money in this industry from your perspective?
If you have a dream, do whatever it is that you need to do in order to pave your way to that dream. When I was selling cars, my dream was to be the internet guy, and then from there, my dream was to move to Florida, and then once I moved here, I was doing sort of, cradle to grave internet sales. I was like, man, I said, I want to be the director. And then I was going to do anything that I had to, in order to become the director. If that meant, working long days, working extra hours, taking a half deal from the guy that doesn't want to stay till midnight to sell a car. I would say just jump in with 2 feet. And if you have a dream, chase it. Don't be lazy. Don't be lackadaisic. And just don't give up on it.
Yeah. And what I'm decoding you to say is that, man, you got to keep setting the bar higher, right? Right. In retail, you wanted to just make some money. Then you started making some money and you wanted to, sell more. And then once you started selling more, you're like, I want to be the internet cat. And now that you're the internet cat, what's the next goal, man? Give it to us. What you chasing now?
So I am, we have 4 stores in our group and we're looking to acquire more. I'm currently over 2 of them. My next vision would be to take over the other 2 stores. Mm-hmm. And then from there, build into be the digital marketing director. I'm going to be the digital marketing director, for the whole group would be my next setup. That's sort of my, I'd say my 3-year goal.
Nice. So name one reason why that can't happen for you.
Right now?
That's a trick question. Name a reason why it can't happen. You can't think of one, right?
Yeah, I guess I can't. Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Like, come on, there's nothing.
Possible.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason why it can't happen. And that's the same thing. That's what I want to kind of impart into our audience. So that's why I said it's kind of a trick question.
Yeah, right, anything is possible.
So tell the people, what do you do? Because you're selling 150 cars a month, through your department, man. How does one do that? Because I know, there's people who are over, 1 and 2 stores and, they're not hitting half of that. So is it the key is processes? What's the key?
Yeah, I think the process is a big one. Surrounding yourself with good people, good talent, good staff, and then training them to basically be a mini version of you. When you're not around, I would say is the ultimate key is, just surrounding yourself with good people and then teaching them, good processes. I have a staff of 4 or 5 rather at our Honda store. And I have 2 that work under me at our Mazda store. And I try to split time as best as I can, between the 2 stores. I can't clone myself. I haven't figured out that technology yet. I don't have Walt Disney money
yet.
But I would just say, it's training and surrounding yourself with good people. I trust everybody that works for me. Mm-hmm. I trust them almost with the keys to the kingdom. So I would just say, like I said, just surround yourself with good people and train them accordingly.
Right. So our industry has a 70% attrition ratio. So that must be easier said than done, right? So you got to give us you got some HR secret. What do you do to make sure that you're, getting around the right people? How did you find the people? What do you do?
I screen everybody. I put them through a pretty interesting hiring process.
Share it.
Anytime I hire somebody, so I make them, I'll do a phone interview. and then I'll bring them in for an in-person interview. And then after our interview, I'll send them like a dummy lead or whatever the case is. And I'll have them respond to me, even if you had never been in the business before. I'll have them send me like a response to like, hey, does this car have DVD? And then I'll have them send me a response, and then I'll have them send me a voicemail to answer the question in which I sent them in whatever lead I sent them. And from that, I'm able to determine, hey, listen, I know this person necessarily hasn't been in, might not have any automotive background, but I can tell that they're passionate, they're excited, they're motivated. They're not, the quality of their emails, their grammar and all that stuff is good. And I'll give them a shot. I feel like you can, there's a lot of skills and habits and stuff that you can train people on. As long as you have somebody that you've hired with the right motivation and the right drive. I think if somebody doesn't have motivation or drive, then they're coming into the wrong business. But the rest of the skills I can teach. And like I mentioned before, I train all of my people to almost be a mini version of me. And that sort of gives them, almost the empowerment, like, hey, when RJ's not around, like, we can make some small level decisions. And I think the staff really appreciates that. Nice. That I don't ride them like Seabiscuit per se.
Right.
I think that's what keeps people around. People don't leave jobs, they leave managers. And I'm a firm believer of that. Nice. So I do my best to, coach and train and, help these guys out as best I can.
And that's beautiful stuff, man. And, like I said, with the attrition ratio being what it is, we hire people when we, see that they have, some skin and bones, you know what I'm saying? If you got blood in your veins, like, oh, yeah, thanks. So to send someone through that process, what I'm finding consistently across the board is that whenever you've got a really good and I don't like to use the term manager. I like to use the term, coach or leader, right? And you got a good leader, they will put you through more of a process in order to, really earn the position. So I'm loving what you're saying. So I think, when you talk about best practices, that's 100% one of them. So let's talk a little bit about this, because pre-recording, I know we were, chatting, and you said, you talked about growth, right? And you said growth is a mindset, right? So what are the keys to, actually grossing on some deals, putting yourself in position to make money and, still have obviously really good relationships with customers and things like that?
Sure. So, as I mentioned before, growth certainly is a mindset. Working on the internet, and everybody's going to have their different opinion. But, people are out shopping for a deal, but for the most part. And if you could do, if somebody gives you a quote from another dealer, let's say, and, their price might be a little bit higher than yours or a little bit lower than yours rather, but you've built enough value in yourself and building a relationship with that customer, you can go back to them and say, hey, listen, the deal they gave you is a really good one. And it might even be a deal that you can do. But maybe hitting them for that extra couple of $100, that extra $300, that extra $400, most people will be flexible in working with you if you've done the right things by the customer up until that point. And then if you get an extra, let's say $400, and you get an extra $400 on 10 car deals, that's $4,000.
Yeah.
Then you do that 12 times a year. What's that? It's $48,000 you just added to the bottom line just by, incremental bumps. I'm not saying that, you can ask somebody for more, whatever the case is. But just asking for the gross, and not necessarily taking the quickest race to the bottom. Oh, hey, dealership down the street, man, they're stealing all my customers. They're giving an $8,000 discount on a $20,000 Honda Civic. If you do the right things and build relationships, like I said, and do those sort of things, when you hit somebody for, all the money or, whatever you perceive to be a good value, every dollar you get over that is added gross to the bottom line for the store.
Mm-hmm. So, and I know you're saying the right thing. So what are some of the right things that you said when you talk about building value? What do you do? What do you train your people to do?
So I feel like every dealership is going to be like, well, we're family owned and operated.
We're
gonna treat you like a family. Come and be a part of, come and be a part of the family. What I train my people to do is build a relationship with somebody. And I'm not just talking about I'm big on notes. So when I get on the phone with somebody, listen, they're calling a handful of dealers. They're not looking to include you in a process. They're looking to exclude you from it, which can be an entirely whole nother topic of conversation. Mm-hmm. But when I get on the phone with somebody and I hear their dog barking, I'm asking, hey man, what kind of dog do you have? And I teach my employees or my reps to do the same thing. Hey, what kind of dog do you have? Oh, he's a Labrador. Oh, fantastic. What's the dog's name? Oh, the dog's name's Chewy. Oh, fantastic. And then I'll put it down in my notes. Mm-hmm. Oh, you have kids. Oh, what are their names? Oh, Betsy and Steven. Oh, Betsy and Steven. I'll put that down in my notes. Mm-hmm. And then, I'll pull stuff out of the customer. Why do you want to look at the Odyssey? Oh, well, Betsy and Steven have a couple of friends that they usually go to lacrosse practice. Okay, they go to lacrosse practice a lot. And then I'll take little things like that. And then if I don't set an appointment right then and there, my next call, I teach my people to not even necessarily call about the car, but just to call to check on Betsy and Steven. Mm-hmm. Oh, what's Fido doing? And it's just teaching people that you on the other end of the phone are a human being. Yeah. And you're not just, RJ, the car guy on the other end of the phone, that you're really a person. You truly care about them and their needs. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully you can take all those pieces together by showing the customer how much you really care. And then I turn it into an appointment, get them to the dealership, and hopefully sell them a car and make a couple of dollars. But it's a relationship game, man. Nice. If you don't have a relationship, or you're not building relationships with people, then you're out of the race. And quite frankly, you're not necessarily somebody I would want working for me. Anybody can get over the phone and go, the Honda Civic is $15,324. When would you like to come by for a test drive? Oh, you've got it for $12,000. Yeah, right. You got it for $12,000. Let me ask my managers. Hey, manager, it's $12,000. What can you do? Right. Tell them to go to the other dealer. Like, there's we laugh about it, but you talk to people all day. I listen to people talk all day. It's too common in our business. But yeah, it's just like I said. It's all about going the extra mile and getting on the phone with a relationship with somebody.
Nice. That's beautiful stuff, man. So I'm hearing you say, the biggest mistakes that people make. I'm hearing you say what you train your people to do. I mean, how important is training, and how do you get them to do it? Because again, me as the blind phone master, that's something I naturally do, right? But I'll watch other people, do that, and they just ignore the dog. Or, even if they do ask the questions, they don't write it in the notes. So, I'm like, if it's not in a CRM, it didn't happen. I mean, we have these little sayings and things like that. But how do you get your people to actually do it?
Sometimes, I'll do little training classes, and then at the end of the training class, I'll do a test or a quiz, or I'll do a little team activity. Mm-hmm. And for the team activity, I'll give away, I'll give away a little spiff, or I'll give away an extra day off, or I'll give away, I'll buy them lunch, or just little things to motivate them. I think training is important. Certainly at my level, I understand that, but sometimes it's hard to get, the hourly, BDC rep or whomever the case is, to buy into some of that stuff. But I try to make it fun and, not like I'm sitting there and sounding like a robot. And then at the end, I try to do some sort of, interactive activity with them where there's a little carrot at the end to win. And they get competitive, man. I have 2 boys and 2 girls in my in my BDC at Honda, and I have a boy and a girl over at Mazda, and they get competitive, and sometimes it's fun to watch. I'll team the boys against the girls, or one boy, one girl, whatever the case is, and it's it's fun to watch them take in what I just gone over with them, and then turn it into their own, and just do like a little group activity with it. So I would just say making it interactive, and and not like I said, not sounding like a robot, like you're talking at them, but you're talking with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how often do you do something like that?
So as a dealership, our sales department trains every Friday in the Friday meeting for, 45 minutes every Friday morning. Okay. Me personally, with my BDC team, I try to train with them twice a week, just to do some sort of activity. Yeah. However, when I'm in the BDC and they're on the phone and they're, stuck on a hurdle, I'll jump in and train them, say, hey, listen, say this, 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 and this, whether it's, about pricing or overcoming a trade objection, or, hey, you're too far for me, or, whatever it is. And I'll jump in with them on the fly if I have to. Nice. I think every part of the day, at some point, you're doing some sort of training.
Yeah, totally agree with that, man. You're actually on it. So talk a little bit about this, because I heard you. I mean, listen, you're married now. You got the little baby kids and all of that good stuff. How do you kind of have that work-life balance with, running the, selling 150 cars a month, and it's still, like you said, like spending time with the kids?
Right. So when I was, I still put in a heck of a lot of hours, man. I'm fortunate to have a really good schedule. I work Monday to Saturday for the most part from 9 to 5, and I take every Sunday off. However, I'm not Fred Flintstone. This isn't the Yabba Dabba Doo. When the shift ends at 5 o'clock, I'm here 6:37, 7:30, almost every single day. Because if I'm not here at the dealership, I always have something I can be working on. Right. Whether it's, coaching or training or doing some stuff on our website or getting ready for meetings the next day or, structuring deals, pulling credit, whatever it can be. So I certainly put in the time, but when I was selling cars, the dealership I was working at, we worked bells a lot of days, and, bells was not in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. And then you get a customer at 8 o'clock, and you're there till 11:30, 8:59. Come on now. You're there till 11:30, 12 o'clock if you sold them a car, So, my kid goes to bed at like 8 o'clock every night. I try my darndest to be home before then, but I get to work at 8:30 and, usually try to be home before then. But in a past life, I was, I'd come in 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night from selling cars. So, it's a little less time for sure, but the grind never stops.
Got it. So what does your wife do for a living, and how does she kind of like stay understanding to that stuff? And, how does that all work out? Because I know, people have these challenges. Right.
So when I first, fortunately, I was in the car business when I met my wife. So, she works this 8:30 to 5, Monday to Friday. She works at a law office. She's a paralegal. She's been there a really long time. She can make her own schedule and come and go as she pleases. Whereas I don't necessarily have have that sort of flexibility. But I think it was tough a little bit when we first started dating because, we'd have plans at, 8 o'clock at night when I'm off at 6, and then, I got a couple of appointments lined up, or I want to try to stay because my next day is not set up so well. And that I think early on took a little bit of a grind. But as time went on, she sort of saw how, important this industry was to me and how it's not just a job, it's really a career. And, I've been with her for 9 blissful years. Wow. And it's all I've done. So she's sort of just become, accustomed to the hours. When when I'm off on a weekend, I feel like she doesn't know what to do with herself. So
cool stuff, man. So, man, I just kind of close this thing out. Tell us what you absolutely love about the automotive industry, and kind of give us a closing statement, something that all the listeners can walk away with.
Sure. This industry changes every single day. I don't have 2 days that are the same. And that's really what I love about this business is it's not, you're not a factory worker. Not saying anything wrong about factory workers, but right. I'm not sitting there punching a rivet into a brake pad, 3,000 times a day. I get, I'm constantly interacting with people. I'm constantly learning new technology because let's face it, this business has grown so much. The technology is growing day by day. So there's always something new to learn. And then, I'm a people person at heart. So I love building relationships with people. So when I assist somebody in a car deal and I do it from time to time, I make relationships with some people for life. And when I first moved here in 2011, I haven't sold cars in 4 years, and I still have people that come to me and won't buy a car from anybody but me because of how I treated them years ago. Wow. It's just an awesome industry to be in. And, I couldn't think of, something better for me or for my family than what I do now.
Nice, man. So, what I'm getting is that this entire message is about treating people good, and really just, bringing out the human aspect of, the being a car dealer. It's like, goodness gracious, right. You're a human being first, right? It's not like you were born as a car dealer, you are. You became a human. Like, no, it's the other way around. So, oh man, you've been really blessing the audience with some really good stuff. And so we totally appreciate that, man. So one of the things that I say is that you are the average of the 5 people who you spend the most time with. And you've just been spending time with Mr. L.A. Williams and Mr. RJ. Go out there and be a millionaire car salesman. Talk to y'all later.
Boom.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you like it, you love it, you want more of it, then don't wait for the next money show. Just go to BradleyOnDemand.com and take your career to the next level.